Welcome into Green Dot Daily. I am Charlie DiSturco, live every weekday at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Action app or YouTube channel. If you're watching from YouTube, say hello in the comments, give us a like, and maybe subscribe to our channel. It helps a lot. Coming up on the show, it is 3 p.m. somewhere, maybe in the East Coast, but also everywhere with Gilles Gallant, where he's going to hop on and break down his favorite three-point props ahead of the play-in tournament games tonight. We may even learn if he has a sky hook in his pickup game arsenal. We'll once again talk the Eastern Conference wildcard playoff race and that last spot with Andy MacNeil as the Capitals look to clinch tonight. And of course, it's Dinger Tuesday, so Anthony Dabbundo will join Sean Koerner as we talk strikeout and home run props on the Diamond. But there's important updates surrounding Jontay Porter betting scandal, so let's start there. News has come out that Porter owned and operated a VIP FanDuel account between 2021 and 2023, where he was, quote, firing all of the time, per a source with direct contact to Action Network. It is important to note, however, that he did not wager on anything NBA or college basketball related. With that in mind, we welcome in Chase Howell to the program. Chase, you broke down the news for the Action Network. You broke it yourself. Jontay Porter, just to fill people in, currently on leave from the Raptors pending investigation, where two games in particular, January 26th, March 20th, Jontay Porter props, as far as their unders go, were among the most profitable in all of basketball that day, mostly because he left early twice, once with an illness and once with an eye injury. We still have more information that's coming out, but I want to talk about the new news that we have. So can you just elaborate a little bit further on what we have learned?
Right. So this has nothing to do with the prop situation that has happened over the last couple months. This goes into the history of Jontay Porter and his gambling activity. And I think the important details are that he gambled at a high volume. It doesn't sound like there were any major bets. There weren't any bets in the 6 digits or 7 digits. From what I've heard from sources, all we know is that he bet pretty heavily and pretty frequently throughout the 3-ish years that he was in the G League. So none of this was when he was in the NBA. And he opened the account in Colorado through FanDuel VIP, which there's a lot of interesting things about. I don't think people are too familiar with VIP accounts, and especially professional athletes betting on VIP accounts, because they're able to receive perks and different things through the sports book. So I think that's also fascinating as well.
Yeah, can you just elaborate a little bit more on what a VIP FanDuel account entails, and just how rare it is for athletes to have one with a sports book? Is it more common than people think, or are there only just a handful out there?
So from what I have been able to gather through sources is they have around 10 to 20 at FanDuel professional athletes, and they're able to control their accounts. So they will actually block out NBA and college basketball for Jontay Porter. So when he opens the app, logs in, he won't even see NBA lines on there. So they're able to have a little bit more control that way. And obviously they're also able to give them bonus bets, perks, tickets to games, which all sounds like things that Jontay received during his time betting at FanDuel.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's definitely something to note that, there is this history that Jontay was gambling, but also important to note that no NBA, no college basketball, especially when we, dive deeper into, the prop scandal that has come on behind the scenes and what is currently under investigation. But can you just also talk, why the news in general that we've come out with the last day, why it matters in the grand scheme of things when it comes to also this investigation that is still currently underway?
Right. So my job as a reporter is obviously to just find the information that is available. It's not to necessarily speculate here, but this is a necessary detail when we're talking about a player that possibly could have been, we could use the word throwing games in this scenario, where we have seen quite a bit of information that people were betting on his unders in 2 games in particular this past season and trying to get heavy action on it up into the 5 digits, which is just something you never see on player props, especially for a rotation type of player that Jontay was. He wasn't playing big minutes for the Toronto Raptors. So this highlights that Jontay has been involved in the sports betting world. He understands sports betting, and he was a consistent sports bettor in the past.
Right. And so obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with this investigation right now, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts I mean, it seems like we're trending toward the direction of a possible lifetime ban. That's been thrown around plenty of times. Do you have any thoughts on that altogether, or maybe when, more information will come out regarding everything around this scandal?
Yeah, the NBA is absolutely going to conduct a thorough investigation. We heard Adam Silver talk a little bit about it about a week ago, where he said this is a cardinal sin and it could result in expulsion from the league. Now, that's probably going to take time. They're going to have to find proof, obviously, through the full investigation. I think there are alleyways to be able to find proof. One thing that maybe people that are watching the show understand, but not many casual sports bettors understand, is that whenever there are bets like this at a sports book, it's usually pretty easy to find. And they're going to track down who was trying to get 5 digits on these bets and see if there's any connections to Jontay. And one thing that I will be interested to see is if they utilize offshore books as well, because that's usually where you can get a little bit more action. And I do have sources that have said that Jontay Porter was betting on an offshore as well. So there's a lot of details here that we're going to end up finding out over the next few months. But if everything starts lining up, as we say, when there's smoke, there's usually fire. And it appears like there's a lot of smoke surrounding the Jontay Porter situation right now.
Right. News continuing to come out regarding Jontay Porter. And obviously be sure to follow Chase on Twitter at Chase Howell. You see his name there with 2 underscores at the back end. That's where you'll be able to find more information on this as the scandal kind of develops further throughout then. Until then, Jontay Porter remains away from the Raptors organization. Chase, thank you so much for hopping on and breaking this down for us.
Thank you, Charlie. It's been a pleasure. You have a great show.
On to the MLB Diamond, and with an Action Pro subscription, you can find our projections and model edges. Looking at the baseball side of things for strikeout props today, April 16th, the highest edge in the market right now, Jared Jones under 6.5 strikeouts. That's nearly a 28% edge with the pro line, right around 4.2. You look at his previous games, Jones, 8, 7, and 10 strikeouts. So over this at 6.5 number every single time. Is now the time to sell high on him and Logan Gilbert, who's down at a 15% edge of his under 7.5 strikeouts. He also has gone over 7.5, 2 of the 3, 7 being the lone loss. And Ranger Suarez rounding us out with under 6.5, nearly a 20% edge as well. Keeping that in mind, it is Dinger Tuesday with Anthony Dabbundo. Strikeout day every day with Sean Koerner. Sean brought his Angels hat out. I had to wear my Mets because I want everyone to know that we're back. The Mets are indeed back. 500 ball club finally now. We're going to go around the diamond here. First, second, third base, maybe a little home run also. Sean, we'll start with you. Let's head 90 feet to first. Your prop of your first strikeout prop of the day.
Yeah, so my first strikeout prop is Ryan Weathers of the Marlins, over 4.5 strikeouts at plus 105. Weathers isn't really a big strikeout guy. His K rate this year is 18.5% after 3 starts, which is a career high, which goes to show he's not really a big strikeout guy, but his underlying metrics this season do support the rise in K rate. And actually have his expected K rate just over 20%. So he's a guy I expect some positive regression. Even more so because his fastball velocity is up a full mile per hour. So his four-seamer's at 96 mile an hour right now. And his sweeper has been filthy this year, generating a very nice 69% whiff rate. His changeup whiff rate is also over 30% as well, which is likely just feeding off his increase in velocity with his fastball. But he has 2 really good, put away pitches in those. And he's just a pitcher I'm interested in investing right now. And I think the Giants should be a plus matchup for him today. They swing at pitches in the zone at the second lowest rate. So that's going to help him get ahead of the count a little bit more. That's really the key with him. He doesn't get to too many 2-strike counts, but when he does, again, he has those 2 excellent put away pitches. So I have him, about a 58% chance to go over 4.5 strikeouts. So I think getting plus odds here is a nice bonus.
Yeah, Ryan Weathers traded from San Diego to Miami, now in that rotation for the Marlins. And I'm curious, Sean, obviously, last week, you came on, you gave out a Josiah Gray prop, and he was ruled out with an injury, maybe like 5 minutes into our segment. When it comes to lineups altogether and trying to project out strikeouts, I'd say the Giants lineup, I don't believe is in at this time, but this is the third game of the day. The game's just about 3 hours away. How much does lineups affect your handicapping of this? I know we were talking a little bit off show, just you kind of baking into account the potential of maybe a guy getting subbed out late and it not really affecting things.
Yeah, so usually I'm looking for a prop. I have like an 8% edge or more. So typically it's not going to really matter in terms of the lineup, whether it's going to be a player or not for me. But it's a great time to ask this question because I think it really does matter what the Giants lineup is today. Jung-Hoo Lee is expected to lead off. He's a left-handed batter, though, so there's a chance they could have a guy like Tyler Fitzgerald in there instead. So I'm trying to balance that out right now. So if Jung-Hoo Lee is in, I'd have this closer to 55%, so like it a little bit less. If Tyler Fitzgerald is in, it goes all the way up to 65%. So this is a situation worth monitoring. So the lineup could be at any minute. So that's something to monitor on how much I will actually like this prop. But most of the time, it's not that big of a difference. But that's something I also map out in my simulator too. Is if the order is a little bit different, if they have a higher K guy higher up in the order, it's more likely the pitcher is going to face him 3 times. So everything matters, but usually it doesn't impact my bet as much. But today we do have a situation where Jung-Hoo Lee, he's going to matter about a 10% difference whether he's in or not today.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And, the downside is, Sean, is that by the time the lineups are released, the line is probably 30 to 40 cents moved because you gave it out on this show. But we'll remain to keep an eye on that and just see maybe the difference if he's in or not and how much that really does play a role in that game, which is just, again, about 3 hours away. Anthony, you are heading to Pittsburgh and the Mets. We're heading to second base here. You're actually fading your boy Jared Jones, who is one of the top prop under strikeouts, but you're targeting a Met to hit a homer off him.
Yeah, I mean, Jones has lit up Major League Baseball. 37% strikeout rate in his first 3 starts. Really impressive from him. And if you watch him pitch, I've compared him to Spencer Strider. I think the comparisons are real. It's very much fastballs right down the middle, dare you to hit it, and then devastating sliders out of the zone. He has some better, secondary pitches, maybe more than Strider did at this point, but the reality is his command has never been great. And so they have him just saying, hey, we're going to throw it down the middle and we're going to trust the stuff to play up. And so far it has. He's getting a lot of swings and misses in the zone. It's very impressive stuff. But like Strider at times, Jones has a home run problem. And I think it's based on the way he's pitching. It didn't show up as much in the minor leagues because he was able to overpower so many of those hitters, but he has had a home run problem. And Francisco Lindor is plus 450 to hit a home run, your boy Charlie. And he's always hit 4-seamers well. And I know that he's really struggling this year. He's slugging 227 with a 260 on base. He's been really bad for the Mets. But if you look under the hood, expected slugging on 4-seam fastballs, 502 in 2022, 480 in 2023. He's at 630 this year. So he's still hitting the ball hard. He's still finding power and maybe starting to come out of it, the slump that he was in. But a lot of the slump was really just, some bad luck with batted ball data. And power in really small samples is very volatile and not something you want to overreact to after 2.5 weeks. We have a long track record of what Francisco Lindor is, and plus 450 in this matchup. I think it's a plus matchup. He may strike out more, but again, we're chasing homers. So I like Lindor.
Yeah, all it takes is one swing to get over the fences. Lindor, you mentioned, kind of coming around the corner here, hits in 5 of his last 6, 2+ in each of the last 2. He does have 1 home run, hoping for my sake and your sake that he does find over the fences. And you mentioned Jared Jones's home run problems that can arise. Had 0 in the debut against Miami, which it's the Marlins offense, which is, you'd expect no home runs. And then 2 against both Philly and Baltimore. So he has given up multiple home runs in 2 of his 3 starts in the big leagues, despite the high strikeouts. All right, Sean, we're going from second to third. We're going to pull an Ellie De La Cruz, try and steal that third base here. Where's your second strikeout prop going?
Yeah, so my second prop is Reynaldo Lopez of the Braves under 4.5 strikeouts. It's actually up to plus 112 right now. But, Lopez is converting back to a starter this year, so we have to figure his K rate will take a hit. It has so far. Last year he had massive K rate at 30% as reliever. It's down to 24.4% after a few starts this year. But based on his underlying metrics, I have it closer to 20%. So I am expecting some regression in terms of his K rate, mainly due to his swinging strikeout rate is a career low 8% right now. His fastball velocity dropped 3 miles per hour, which makes sense because he's trying to last, longer in the game. But, his pitch mix hasn't really changed that much. He's still throwing his fastball around 65% of the time. So when he faces hitters, the second or third time through the order, he's going to have an even bigger drop off in K rate, just given he's so consistently throwing his fastball. But the Astros is just a tougher matchup for him as well. They rank first in runs above average against fastball. So, he's out there throwing it 2/3 of the time. That's not a good matchup for him. Plus they whiff at the fourth lowest rate. So this is a really tough spot for him to rack up strikeouts. I'm projecting him around a 59% chance to stay under 4.5. So the fact that we're getting plus 112 odds here is a nice bonus.
Right. Definitely, as you become a reliever to a starter, that strikeout rate expected to drop as you continue to face lineups, turn it over second or third time. And you mentioned, the Houston offense, lowest strikeout rate in baseball right now. And, the offense is not the issue with this Houston Astros team right now. It's been the pitching that's really been struggling, both when it comes to injuries and Josh Hader in the back end of the bullpen. But the offense definitely always a threat to knock a starter out early. So fingers crossed on there. All right, Dabbundo. I won't say Ellie De La Cruz again because I know he's your favorite player, but we're going home. The final stretch here. Your last dinger prop for Tuesday.
Tristan Casas plus 560 against Tanner Bybee and the Cleveland Guardians. I'm surprised by this number. Casas has 30+ home run per year power. When you look at his raw exit numbers, max exit velo, his EV50, which is like your percentage of 50 hardest hit balls percentile. How hard are they? He has really strong plus power and put up double-digit barrel rates. In the second half of last season, he was close to 20% after a slow start. And now he's priced at plus 560. Bybee didn't have a home run problem last year. He really tried to hide the fastball, but the problem for him this year has been that the fastball command hasn't been good. He's falling behind in counts more, and his breaking ball command hasn't been as good. So he's had to go to that fastball, which is really not a great pitch, by stuff plus or by run value in the last couple of years. Well, Casas, 607 expected slug against fastballs last year. So if he falls behind in the count, Casas, very disciplined hitter. It becomes a problem where he has to throw these bad fastballs over the plate, and Casas will be waiting. I like this matchup. I like the power, and I like the upside of Casas going forward in the middle of this lineup, hitting fourth tonight for Boston.
Yeah, this number does feel a bit long. He's a guy that I definitely, tried to buy a lot of stock into in my fantasy teams. This number, I looked at the matchup and thought it, kind of was too long, like you thought so as well. And obviously, the wind's blowing out close to double digit to right field, a plus for a guy like Casas, who's going to be, hitting it out as a left-hander toward that area most of the time. But I'm curious your thoughts in general, because obviously certain ballparks play differently when it comes to wind blowing in or out. Citizens Bank Park is probably chief among them when it matters the most when it comes to totals. But how much do stadiums in general, how much do you look into that when you're trying to factor in and pick out home run guys? Are you looking at that for every single prop?
Yeah, the thing is, it tends to be priced in. Wrigley Field, Citizens Bank Park, generally two of the bigger ones when it comes to how much wind affects the park, and parks can play differently year to year depending on certain changes to dimensions and whatnot. But the biggest thing is the problem with home run props, especially, is that you don't usually get those until after the totals have been set. So the total maybe opens on the night before. And, you're going to get sharp money betting totals off of weather, and they're going to get, the market kind of sharpens up. Then they put the home run props out. And a lot of times, with it being a one-way market, home run market, you don't really get to bet no very often. They tend to juice those props, especially on guys who are popular and guys who, maybe everybody can look at the wind and say, hey, 15-mile-an-hour wind's blowing out today. They tend to deflate and sometimes overreact to the numbers. You still have to barrel a baseball. The wind doesn't have that much of an impact on the barreling of the ball. So I think generally wind can probably be a little overrated when we talk about home run props, but certainly, opening totals, if you're ahead on the weather, that's a huge difference.
Yeah. And then, you mentioned just the weather. We were talking all before this, and we mentioned Corey Seager had a couple to the wall in that Tigers-Rangers game. Also, Kerry Carpenter could have been home runs, but just based on weather in general, maybe dying on the warning track, which hopefully is not the case in these props tonight. But all right, we got your two props each, and now it's time for some fun. I want to have some fun here. And our producer, Barbara, she tried to make our segment before, swing batter or something like that, but her good idea was asking our closer walkout songs. So you're a closing pitcher, and the noise, it's just everything's going on, and you're about to make your entrance. And obviously, I'm biased a bit. I love Diaz's trumpets, but if I was a closing pitcher and I was, I have a high ego. I'm the best closer in baseball at the time. I'm going to enter To Hell's Bells by AC/DC. It's Trevor Hoffman entered with that, but I think he even did it wrong. I want the lights off like The Undertaker. I want the bells ringing, maybe some smoke coming out the bullpen, gates as I enter in with a hood on, lights in the stadiums, fans have their flashlight on as I make my entrance and my slow walk to the mound. I think The Undertaker is like my most nostalgic walkout I've ever seen in any of sports. And even in WrestleMania this weekend, him coming out gave me chills, just the overall ambiance of things. So AC/DC Hell's Bells is my favorite walkout song. I'll kick it to you, Sean, before we end up with the Dabbundo.
Well, mine would be The Sea Returns by the Swans because they're my favorite band of all time. I also think it'd be a perfect walkout song. I would do it similar to you. Turn the lights off, kind of a creepy song. Plus, no one in the stands, the first time I would walk out to it, no one in the stands would have heard it before, which I kind of like it. I'm not throwing 100-mile-an-hour heat. Back in the day when I was a pitcher, I would hit low 80s on a good day. I'm out there throwing knuckle curves and circle changeups and just trying to keep the hitters off timing. That's kind of the song. So it kind of matched my pitching style as well.
I can confirm that I had to look up on Spotify The Sea Returns and listen to it. And, the lights off ambiance definitely does it justice on just like the creepiness around it as you walk in with the finesse of the curveball. They're not going to know what's going to hit them, Sean, but Dabbundo, you're also going down a badass route with your entrance as far as a closer goes.
Yeah, I'm not from Baltimore, but it's my favorite television show of all time. The Omar Whistle, one of the most iconic kind of theme musics in all of television history, just strikes fear into the opponent. The Ravens have used it. The Orioles have been using it for Felix Bautista in past years. I doubt Felix even knows what The Wire is, but an iconic television show, one that I make references to often on Twitter and whatnot. And, I'm not going to whistle the Farmer in the Dell here, but it is an epic entrance song.
Yeah, really, we need something.
It gives you chills.
Yeah, give me a whistle. Give me a whistle.
I'm not going to do it. I don't think the mics would pick it up all that.
Oh, so you guys can't hear me? All right. You know what? All right. If you Google Omar Whistle, I had to YouTube it too because I don't watch
Charlie's
The Wire.
never seen The Wire. No culture.
Yeah, can confirm. Wow. I usually watch Sopranos on HBO. You gotta kill me, But Sean Koerner, Anthony Dabbundo, thanks so much. We'll be having maybe we'll have these entrance songs come in the next time we all have a segment together.
Let's do it.
Back over to the hardwood, and the NBA play-in tournament gets underway tonight. So let's take a look at how the market has shaken up. The favorites have taken in the majority of a lot of buyback on the Pelicans. They have 34% of the bets and 93% of the money. That line has ballooned up from 1 point favorite to 2.5 right now. And both totals dropping over 3 points with sharp activity from our action app, showing that the under has taken in sharp money, but there is an overwhelming majority on the over in that Lakers-Pelicans game. It's 3 p.m. somewhere. So what better way to talk the tournament than with some 3-point props from Gilles Gallant. Gilles, before we get your favorite props, I want to ask you, you're in a pickup game. Are you the sharpshooter? Are you a 3-and-D guy, or are you locating your butt down in the post?
Well, it's been probably a good 20 years since I've been playing pickup. I used to play a lot in high school and play for my high school team, but I had more of that football background. So by the time I started playing basketball, all I could think to myself is, I'm just going to put my head down and try to get in a guy's chest. And that didn't always work. So I was trying to think what's a good comp, because I'm a lefty. I'd probably say Goran Dragic. I was thinking about this. I didn't want to give myself that much credit and be like, oh, I'm like Manu Ginobili. Come on, nobody's as good. But Goran Dragic, I think that kind of game where you're on balance, you got a little bit, you're probably like a solid 8 out of 10 everywhere else. But yeah, and not quite an all-star, but at the same time played his role. So yeah, I think Goran Dragic, maybe even if I was in my quicker days, maybe Nick Van Exel.
Okay, there you go. And lefties do it best. I'm also a lefty. You're a tall guy as well. I used to like to shoot a lot, then realized that my potential is probably more of the Zach Randolph mid-range, or try and be good around that the low post. So, but let's talk NBA 3-point props now. Tonight's game, play-in tournament, Lakers play the Pelicans first at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You're targeting a big man himself in Anthony Davis.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at you, Charlie. all grown up now in the host chair. I just wanted to acknowledge that. Again, the tables have turned. You are now hosting, doing a great job. And the guy that we're looking at to fade, I guess, for three-pointers tonight is Anthony Davis. I'm going to take him not to hit a three-pointer. It's around minus 125, minus 130. So I bet this last game, and I'm going right back to it because this is really a great matchup for Davis down low. Facing Jonas Valanciunas and Larry Nance Jr., neither of those guys can really guard him in the paint. I mean, he pretty much played Jonas right off the floor, finished 13 for 16 inside the three-point line in that game. Also, just historically looking at the way that these teams have matched up this year, 4 games versus the Pelicans, Anthony Davis hasn't really been needed to shoot three-pointers. He's tried. He's taken 6 3-point attempts, but he missed all of them. And really, that's been his game as the All-Star break after that. And then as we've gone on, he's only hit a three-pointer in 8 of 24 games since the All-Star break. Another factor that we got to consider here, Charlie, is foul trouble. He's actually gotten 4 or more fouls in 3 of the 4 games versus New Orleans this year. He actually had to sit portions of the third quarter in that last game because he got his 4th foul after Zion drove right into him. And let's be honest, like, I don't really want to put this out there, but at the same time, 80 isn't necessarily the picture of perfect health. He could easily just take a knock and leave the game early if the Lakers are up big, or maybe even save himself for the next game, because I'm not really sure how motivated the Lakers are to win this game, especially because they have to play the Nuggets if they win this one. Whereas if they lose and then potentially win the next game, they'll have the OKC Thunder, which I think they match up a little bit better with. So I think anybody who's betting on Anthony Davis to hit a three-pointer tonight, you're really taking it because he's due. And I think that's a terrible reason to make any bet.
It is indeed. And you mentioned, obviously, the potential for injury. He is questionable entering this game with back spasms. Like, he's going to play because it's a playoff game, but there are the underlying concerns with his back spasms if that flares up, because the back is one of those injuries that you really don't want to suffer. No. And it's a consistent deal. It's a consistent injury altogether. And you mentioned, Davis, 13 to 16 inside the arc, 0 for 1 from 3. He completely played Jonas Valanciunas off the court in that season finale. We saw Larry Nance go for 30+ minutes. Is that something that you're expecting again, where the Pelicans counter with Larry Nance, or do you think we might see a little bit more Jonas?
I don't really think they have an option, because Jonas is just too slow to be able to keep up with him, and he cannot really guard him down low. And the Pelicans tend to want to play small ball. They want to get out and run. So that really lends itself to Larry Nance. And Larry Nance he's given up 4 inches on him at least. He's 6'7". He definitely weighs less. So, Anthony Davis pretty much picked him apart last game. So, yeah, I think if anything, the Pelicans will have to probably play Larry Nance closer to 25 to 30 minutes. And if that's the case, Davis is just going to cook in the paint.
Yeah, he should be able to have his inside the arc. But let's talk, an over, because when Charlie DiSturco talks props, he likes to talk overs most of the time. That's what Nick Giffen likes to say. And you're staying in this game and you're taking an over, but on the Pelicans side of things.
Yeah, for sure. And the first bet, I think I was channeling my inner Sean Koerner there, who loves to take a nice under there, has really inspired me on that front. But from an over standpoint, looking at the Pelicans side, I'm taking Trey Murphy III to have at least 3 or more three-pointers against the Lakers. It's around minus 105. I'd play it to about minus 115. So, Charlie, we saw it a couple of games ago, went 3 for 6 from three-point against the Lakers. And the Lakers, low-key, even though they're very strong defensively in the paint, they're bottom 5 in opponent three-point makes since the All-Star break and over the last 30 days. And Trey, in that same span, just been red hot from the perimeter, averaging 3.5 three-point makes per game since the All-Star break. That's a 27-game sample size. Another thing, too, Charlie, when I'm betting these three-point props is I like to look at where the volume is coming from. And for Trey, over 70% of all of his field goal attempts come from three-point. That's the highest split on the team. And now a lot of this damage that he has done over the last month is with Brandon Ingram out, who is going to be back for this game. But that being said, I'm not convinced Ingram is fully healthy and that he's going to play more than 25 minutes. Also, just another, just for reference for people who are betting three-point props like myself, Trey Murphy's over-under three-point line is usually around 3.5. So the fact that we're getting 2.5, I think that's a little bit of an overreaction of Brandon Ingram coming back. And again, the guy's name is Trey Murphy III. I can't think of a better player to bet on for it's 3 p.m. somewhere. So Trey Murphy III to have at least 3 3-pointers against the Lakers tonight is my second favorite bet from that game.
Yeah, I love this look. And a name like Trey being the third in your family, you better make damn sure that you're good at shooting the threes. And like when you said that you liked his over here, I was curious. My mind started going like, oh, I looked back at his recent games: 6 against Golden State, 6 against Sacramento, 5 against Portland, all with 9+ 3-point attempts too. Is this like should we consider a ladder part? Because that's where like my mind's going, where I want to sit down, enjoy the NBA action, and maybe sweat out some plus money too.
I think it's interesting to consider. My only issue is I think sportsbooks are thinking the same way that we are, because right now when you look at the ladder opportunities for 4 3-pointers and 5 3-pointers, right now for 5, it's maybe plus 450, plus 500 at best. I feel like that should be closer to maybe plus 750 for somebody to have 5 3-pointers in a game. So it's not to say that he can't do it. I'm just not there with the odds where I feel great about the ladder opportunity. But again, if there's anybody that I would ladder 3-point props for the Pelicans tonight, it would definitely be Trey Murphy III.
There we go. Trays from Trey Murphy the third. That's the second prop for Gilles Gallant. As far as the other one, Anthony Davis under a half a 3-pointer made. All right. So you don't have an official prop in this second game, Warriors Kings, but you do have a lean. So I brought out my nifty little phone with the shot clock. I'm going to give you 24 seconds. You got to tell me what 3-point prop that you're leaning toward in this game.
Okay, here we go. Keegan Murray over 3.5 3-pointers at plus 145. No Malik Monk. He's averaging almost 10 3-point attempts per game in April. That's 8th in the NBA in that time. He actually shoots it better in home games, 40% from 3-point at home, 30% on the road. And the Warriors are bottom 10 at opponent 3-point attempts over the last 30 days.
Wow. 18.62. That was
6 seconds to spare.
On the shot. You could have filibustered your way through that too as well. But Gilles Gallant, you gave out your 3-point prop, so I want to have a little fun here. You're sitting on the couch tonight. You're watching the NBA playing tournaments. Say Trey Murphy comes out, goes 3 for 3. He nails the third right away. What 3-point celebration are you doing, and what is your favorite altogether?
The shrug. It's got to be, especially if he's hitting 3 threes in the first quarter. That's one of those times where you just like, all right, I'm going to kick my feet up and maybe even change the channel. I don't need to even watch the rest of this game and just collect the money.
See, I'm a celebratory guy. When we do touchdown bets together, we have the touchdown show. When I get a prop hit, I like to go crazy. I'll do celebrations, Gronk spike, whatever it is. I'm the more of the Jamal Murray, grab the arrow from the back, shoot it like that. Bang, as soon as you hit it. So that's,
and see, I don't mind that, Selly. I don't mind that, Selly, if you and I are just chilling together. I would not do that, Selly, if I was like actually on the court for a street ball game. That's a one-way ticket to get smucked in the face. So I'd be very careful with that. But at the same time, just me and you chilling, might just do a nice little fist bump, maybe punch the wall a little bit just to get excited.
I am not one to shy away from conflict on the basketball court. My size, I usually like to throw in some jabs when I can. But Gilles Gallant, best of luck tonight on your 3-point props. It's 3 p.m. somewhere, so let's celebrate.
Cheers, my touchdown, brother.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Deera, and I've got a couple of my favorite bets for the NBA play-in tournament. The first game that I'm going to be looking at is the Lakers versus the Pelicans, and I'm taking Zion Williamson under 24.5 points. He's been an absolute wrecking ball to end the season, averaging 27.1 points per game in his last 10 without Brandon Ingram, but then he put up a 12-point dud in the finale against the Lakers in Ingram's return. This kind of correlates with what he's done over the course of the entire season. With Ingram, he's averaging just 22.5 points per game compared to 24.3 points per game without him on the season. So we have that working against him for today's 24.5 points line. He's exceeded this number in just 2 of 4 games against the Lakers this season. However, he's not necessarily had great volume in these matchups either. In the 4 games he's played, he's taken 8, 12, 19, and 13 field goal attempts, with 3 of 4 falling below his average of 15.4 field goal attempts per game. The Lakers decided via scheme that Zion was not going to beat them in the finale. While Coach Willie Green can try and coach around that, it is difficult to get away from the defense the Lakers threw at him. The Lakers put multiple players on ball, and instead of using AD to cover Zion, especially when Nance was in, they used him as a floater a little bit closer to the hoop. This is something Zion struggled with because you just can't really bulldoze your way through LeBron, Rui, and AD. It's very, very difficult. The Pelicans are going to need to generate offense to keep this game competitive, but I think it's more likely that they find it from Ingram and McCollum than from Zion. I like Zion to go under 24.5 points today. Let's go look at the other playing game between the Warriors and the Kings, and I'm going to be on Stephen Curry over 4.5 rebounds. So this is a rematch from last year in the first round of the playoffs, and I think that we really need to keep an eye on Curry, who's obviously going to be the focal point of the Warriors offense. The Warriors obviously are a little bit differently composed than last year, but one of the ways that they've historically liked to kickstart the offense has been if Curry can get the rebound to kickstart a fast break. It allows the Warriors to operate in transition more effectively while getting the defense on their heels. And in the last 2 playoffs, he's averaged 5.2 rebounds per game. This has also really played out against the Kings over the course of the last couple of seasons as well, and he's averaged 5.7 rebounds per game in 15 matchups against the Kings, while exceeding 4.5 boards in 11 of 15 games. I like Curry's points a bit, and I considered betting the PR, but I do expect the Kings to sell out on trying to cover him on the offensive side of the ball with both Keon Ellis and Davion Mitchell to try to slow him down today. So I think that Curry can contribute in a multitude of ways, but in this game, I expect him to make a concerted effort on the glass in a win or go home game. So to recap, my 2 favorite plays for the NBA play-in tournament are Stephen Curry over 4.5 rebounds and Zion Williamson under 24.5 points. Best of luck on your wagers today and enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays.
Stop me if you've heard this before, but the Eastern Conference wildcard race is heating up again, and actually it's got to come into a close finally, and holy puck is it really close. The Capitals get an opportunity to close out and secure their playoff berth tonight with a matchup against the Flyers. All they have to do is win, and they're in. The Red Wings, meanwhile, need to win, and the Caps lose. Whether or not it's in regulation or overtime does not matter. And then it gets to the nitty-gritty. The Penguins need a win, and then both the Capitals and Red Wings to lose. And of course, the Flyers, they're 2 points back, and it seems unlikely, but they would need to win with Detroit and Pittsburgh both losing in regulation. With that in mind, we welcome in NHL analyst Andy MacNeil to the program. Andy, we're going to start with that Capitals-Flyers game. That's the one everyone's eyes should be on. The Caps, they win, they're in. The Flyers, they win. Their hopes, though bleak, are still alive. What do you see in this matchup, and where do you see it going?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you breaking down all of the playoff implications for me, because my brain is mush after trying to, factor all of this in so far this morning. So many things to account for. But as you mentioned, Washington is the only team out of all the teams vying for that final wildcard spot that is in control of their own destiny. The Flyers are done if the Capitals, Penguins, or the Red Wings get a single point on Tuesday or Wednesday. So this creates a situation where, like you said, the Flyers have to win in regulation, and therefore the team will likely be checking the scoreboard. But if we get into a chance where this game is tied late in the game, Philly's not going to have any other choice but to pull their goaltender and try to win in regulation. So that makes this one pretty interesting. Based on my model, Philadelphia's odds seem to be inflated, and I think that's due to the fact that this is a must-win game for the Flyers. We see that a lot in these situations. Not so much that there is value on Washington to justify a bet right now, but I don't think the Flyers' money line odds should be any higher than minus 130. If you compare these teams by their even strength expected goals percentage since the start of February, Philly, they're the superior team, but there's less than 3 percentage points separating these two teams in that category. And the Capitals actually have a better goal share in all situations during that stretch. I haven't made a bet on this game yet, but I am leaning toward the over 5.5 goals at minus 120. The Caps have combined with their opponents to score 6 or more goals in 65% of their last 40 games, while the Flyers have combined with their opponents to score 6 or more in 60% of their last 40 games. And these two teams, they might not have the luxury of playing sound defense in a situation where you got to score to get in. So I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the Capitals, they're in if they win. They also have the 3rd worst goal differential in the NHL or in the Eastern Conference, which is super interesting that they just keep on winning despite that negative differential. And the Flyers, it seems like they can't get out of their own way. They're 2-6-2 in their last 10. They seemingly had this playoff spot potentially locked up and then let it slip through their hands. I'm curious, you mentioned that Philly has to win in regulation. And is this a potential spot where, say, there's 8 minutes left in the third, you're looking at the live line of this and it's close to even? Would you consider maybe taking a flyer on the Capitals, knowing that Philly has to pull their goalie and leaving an empty net for the opportunity?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up. I think that will be something that every bettor should be monitoring tonight. Obviously, you're going to have to, at the same time, monitor the score in Detroit and Montreal. If it's a a huge lopsided game in favor of the Red Wings, then maybe Philly doesn't have any incentive to do that in the first place. But between those two games, watching the scoreboards, there could very well be some inefficiencies in the market. But I don't have any faith in the Flyers right now. Like you said, they had an 80% chance of making the playoffs back on March 24th. They had just beaten the Boston Bruins, a team that, pretty impressive win. And then they went on to lose 8 straight. So the Flyers, they really choked on this season.
Yeah, I know. It's been a downfall that has not been pretty to watch. But you mentioned scoreboard watching. The Canadiens, Red Wings also squaring off tonight. The Red Wings had it. What an incredible comeback they had yesterday. They pull their goalies, score the game-tying goal in the final minute plus, and win then in overtime. Now their playoff hopes seemingly are the best, seemingly the best now that they're minus money and the Caps are underdogs tonight. I'm curious how you see this one playing out, and if we see another close game, or is this one that the Red Wings are going to kind of pull away?
Yeah, credit to Detroit for not quitting. There was a great video that was going around this morning of an Uber Eats driver delivering some food to a Red Wings fan's house, and it just happened to be at the same time that they scored the tying goal to send it to overtime, and all he could hear was screaming and didn't know what was going on. But the Red Wings, I think they deserve a lot of credit for getting here, but poor starts have been a problem for this team all season long. They dominated the shot count last night in Montreal, but score effects had a lot to do with that. And by score effects, I mean Detroit didn't really start to dominate until they were down 3-1, and the Canadiens had gone up by 4-1 in the second period, about midway through, and they really started to sit back, and that gave Detroit a chance to get back in the game. But I actually think the Montreal Canadiens have an edge in the crease in this game tonight, with James Reimer and Caden Primo expected to be the starting goaltenders. Primo and Reimer have played basically the same amount of minutes this season, and the former's stats, or the latter stats, are much worse in save percentage, goals saved above expected, things like that. Primo is a much better goaltender, and I think Montreal is worth a punt at plus 160 or better, but shop around because there is some plus 165 out there.
Yeah, and we could even see a potential must-win tax that's coming in on Detroit as well, because now they're going on the road. You're expecting a pretty raucous environment in Montreal. I mean, this last game of the season, knowing that you can send Detroit packing at home, definitely worth a look on the Canadiens here. And I'm so excited to see how this goes. You mentioned that video of the Uber Eats driver. It gave me goosebumps, just like imagining my team being potentially in the playoffs. I'm a diehard Mets fan, and if they even had a chance and hit a late home run or whatever it was, because that goal from Raymond was absolutely just ice cold. So interesting to see how this wild card kind of doles out. Tomorrow the Penguins do play, so it's not completely over. If every team somehow loses, then Penguins have a chance. Maybe we'll be talking about that tomorrow. But let's take a look ahead to the actual playoffs itself, getting underway this weekend. You have a couple series that you kind of are keying on. The first one comes out. We know that the Winnipeg Jets and the Avalanche will play each other. It seems like Winnipeg is going to get home ice advantage. They're up a point with 2 games in hand. Just can you discuss how you're looking at the series as a whole and how you see it all playing out?
Yeah, so the Jets, they have a chance to potentially determine who gets home ice before the Avs play the Oilers in their final regular season game. So if Winnipeg gets 2 points against the Kraken tonight, then they can lock up the home ice advantage for their opening round series versus Colorado. And the odds are in their favor. They've got 2 games. Colorado only has 1. The Jets have actually beaten the Avs in all 3 meetings this season, which I think will surprise some people. There isn't a huge gap between these 2 teams, but I still do have Colorado rated higher. And as far as how this series is going to be priced, depending on who gets home ice advantage. I think sportsbooks have done a really good job setting the series line, even though home ice hasn't been determined, because the way I see it, you look at Colorado, they are minus 138 on the series line right now at FanDuel. And I think minus 140 would be a fair price if they get home ice advantage. If they don't have home ice advantage, I think minus 117 is a fair price for the Avalanche. And with Winnipeg down at plus 115 right now, that means there's no bet on either side. I think, you look from the sportsbooks perspective, they're vigorous. Their straddle kind of makes up the difference between having home ice and not having home ice for the Avalanche.
Right. Yeah. It's something to watch. And it seems like Winnipeg should be able to get that home ice, but hockey's crazy. We can see what happens at all of it down to the wire.
There could be a situation too where if things fall apart for the Canucks and the Oilers, they've got a back-to-back here left. They could potentially be playing for first place in the Pacific Division on Thursday against Colorado. So that could create a very important matchup for the Oilers in that one.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on, and obviously follow the guys on Twitter and in the Action app. Just to keep up to date with how everything comes out, how they're picking these games all together. And then let's move to the Eastern Conference as well. One other series that I want to touch on, another series that's intact. The Carolina Hurricanes are going to play the New York Islanders. The Islanders finally clinching a playoff berth. Michael Lieboff is somewhere doing a backflip happily, maybe just for the week until the Carolina Hurricanes walk away with this. But do you see any chance with the Isles pulling this one out, or is this all Hurricanes?
Well, there's always a chance, but I mean, the only people that want to see the Islanders in the playoffs are Islanders fans, because nobody wants to watch 4 games, let alone 7, with how boring this team is. But Carolina and New York, they met in round 1 last season. And the Hurricanes won that one 4-2 after taking a 2-0 series lead into game 3. And according to my model, there's about a 74% chance that they'll eliminate the Islanders in this year's playoffs. So, the Islanders, they've got a 26% chance of winning this one, which is a lot. Not very close to 0, but that works out to a fair series price of around minus 285 in favor of Carolina, which I think is probably a pretty good estimate for a true price based on the odds, because the Hurricanes are minus 350 favorite and the Isles are down at plus 175. You'd expect sports books to kind of shade things toward the favorite because, hey, everybody wants to bet the favorite, right? But looking at the Islanders and how this one is going to have to move in order for me to get behind this team to take down the Carolina Hurricanes, and I'm probably going to be looking for like plus 315 or better on the Isles, unless otherwise I'm going to probably stand pat on this one, maybe look for some live in-series opportunities. But we talked about it before the show. Even if Carolina goes up 1-0 in the series, I'd probably need 6-1 to bet the Islanders at that point. So, chances are I'm not going to see enough value on this New York Islanders team.
Yeah, Michael Lieboff might be the only one that's buying in on the Islanders right now.
Oh, he definitely is.
Carolina. Yeah, I know. He's happy for now, and then we'll get him next week on Green.Daily, and he'll be sad when they're losing in the series. But I do want to ask you before I let you go. Obviously, you mentioned the Hurricanes. They are the favorites, plus 650 to win the Stanley Cup at FanDuel right now. Are they? Is it their Stanley Cup to lose? I mean, the Rangers obviously won the President's Trophy, but I feel like everyone at the top is just so talented. It's really hard to pick one. Your Stanley Cup pick. Give me who you're taking.
I'm going to take the Hurricanes. It's the square pick, but hey, they're the best team in the NHL right now.
Hopefully they can get it done. Andy MacNeil, thank you so much for hopping on. Enjoy the final days of the regular season and the NHL playoffs to come.
Thanks.
And just a reminder that any picks we give out here on the show, like the ones you heard from Andy, you can easily reference by following Green.Daily at Green.Daily in the Action Network app. We keep track so you don't have to. And that's going to be all for Green.Daily on this Tuesday. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm Charlie DiSturco. I'll be back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern in the host desk on the Action app and YouTube channel. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, right now, going in our YouTube channel, premiering 4 minutes ago it was, but the Johnny Manziel, Kurt Bankert Franchise Mode series, the 3rd episode, breaking down Michael Penix Jr. is live right now. It's breaking down his NFL intangibles, best fit in the big league, and more. So go on there. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you tomorrow.